Heavenly Father, thank you for this day. Thank you for the blessings you have given us by allowing us to wake up in this country. Thank you for the blessings you have given this city. Please lead, guide, and direct us as we move through tonight's agenda. Be with our military and our first responders, Lord. In Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Amen. And salute. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all for joining us tonight. At this time, Janine, do we have any citizens registered for comment?
No, sir.
Mitch, introduction of new employees.
Yes, we've got, on the back row over here, we have David Cabrera, who stand up.
Yes, sir.
And then we got Frank Ramirez and Seth Torres,
Florida.
are three new hirees. We have one more that I don't guess made it tonight. These are all public works guys, and we're glad to have them on board.
Glad to have you all, guys.
Yeah, y'all don't have to stay, this is really long.
Thanks, David.
You're free to go if you want. If you don't want to stay, the meeting will last less than an hour, but if you need to get home.
Thanks.
Here's one more.
Oh, we got another new hire we have.
All right.
For tonight.
Yeah, this is Jerry Martinez. He's going to be on utilities as a meter reader.
Nice to have you, Jerry.
Thank you. See, that was painless.
At this time, we would like to consider and approve monthly departmental reports, police department, fire department, EMS, codes enforcement, animal control, landfill, water, wastewater, streets and parks, municipal court, monthly financial report, sales tax collection, property tax collection, and LEDC A and B reports met. Do what?
Minutes.
I'm sorry, I marked it off. So we'll go back to consider and approve the minutes for the February 5th special meeting. If there are no additions or corrections, can I get a motion to approve the minutes as read?
Make the motion to approve the minutes of the February 5th meeting. Second.
Motion's been made by Johnny, seconded by Renee, that we approve the minutes from the February 5th meeting. Is there any discussion? If none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The motion carries. Next, we will have the reading of the monthly departmental reports as previously stated. If you have a question, please identify the page.
Pages 16 to 27. It's my first opportunity to be here in the new calendar year, and I noticed that those reports are based on calendar year. I thought those should be based on fiscal year. Is that correct or not? Since everything else is fiscal based.
Kevin, is there a reason why they're calendar years to fiscal years that the TW takes
Yeah,
one on board?
It's easier for me because that's how TCQ wants it. So all my
Yeah.
reports are for year to year, not fiscal year.
Okay.
But we could change it, if y'all really wanted to, but that's.
No, it's just something that I've noticed difference because in previous times I've been on council, it was always fiscal year.
Well, that's a good point. Most things we do are fiscal year, but, that
I
just
can
makes it
provide
easier for-
fiscal, like, when Andrew and Sarah need stuff based off of the fiscal year, I can hand them that, but, so that's not a problem, but as far as TCQ, mine is always year to year, so I just keep it like that because it's easier and simple, and I only have to do it once.
Well, since we base our water income on those reports, I don't know, I think it might be a good idea to look at it in the fiscal year on our reports. It's just me though, I mean, I'm just one person in council, so.
Well, I think that makes sense. We'll look at some kind of a little, jot down something for a fiscal year report. Shouldn't be a big problem.
Kevin, that's the first time I've seen the report of storage capacity and production as a useful report you did. Appreciate that. Any other questions on departmental reports? If no other questions, can I get a motion to approve the monthly departmental reports?
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Motion's been made by Michael, seconded by Johnny. Is there any further discussion? If none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, the motion carries. Next, we'll have a presentation of our annual police report, including state-required racial profiling report. Chief.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, and citizens. The purpose of this racial profiling report is to give you the annual update on activities by the Littlefield Police Department. As required by the state, this department has filed a full report with TCOL. Part of that stipulation is that we clearly defined acts constituting racial profiling, and that we strictly prohibit peace officers from conducting racial profiling. We implement a process in which individuals may file a complaint with the Littlefield Police Department regarding racial profiling allegations, and we require corrective action should an officer engage in racial profiling. We also uphold the collection of information regarding making an annual report to TCOL, and I certify as the Chief of Police that this has been done. As far as the calendar year of 2018, the Littlefield Police Department made 1,086 traffic stops. Out of those 1,086 traffic stops, male offenders accounted for 645 of those violations, and females accounted for 441 violations. The male violators accounted for 59.39% of the total stops, and they make up 49.1% of the population. Female offenders account for 50.9% of the total population of Littlefield, so male violators have a way of catching up and driving a little bit better. As far as race and ethnicity goes, out of that 1086, 532 violators were Hispanic. They accounted for 48.99% of the total violations, and Hispanic population makes up 56.5% of the total population of Littlefield. White or Anglo violators accounted for 466 violations. They make up 42.91% of the total violations, and they account for 35.2% of the population. Black or African American violators accounted for 79 violations. They make up 7.27% of the total violations of the 1,086. And as far as Littlefield goes, they make up 6.3% of the population. I believe that these violations are in line with our makeup of our community, and I believe this justifies the fact that we are not conducting racial profiling. The rest of this report is compiled on pages 55 and 56. I'll let you folks look at this at your leisure. I can get into depth if you'd like. I can answer any questions you might like.
Anybody have any questions for the chief? Thank you, chief. You did a good job.
Thank you, sir. Y'all have a good night.
Next, we'll consider and approve the joint election resolution and the joint election agreement between the city of Littlefield and Littlefield Independent School District. Mitch.
Kind of self-explanatory there. Amy, anything to add to that?
No, sir, schools are required to contract with cities when they have an election on a uniform election date. And so we happen to have one the same time they are, and we're going to be the administrator for it.
Is there a motion to approve that joint resolution and joint election agreement?
Make a And resolution and joint election agreement.
Second. Motion's been made by Michaels, or made by Johnny, seconded by Michael. Is there any other discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, the motion carries. Next, we'll discuss and consider and adopt a resolution to designate authorized signatures for the Texas CDBG program planning contract number 7218084.
Mayor, these next three items, including this one, are all good for paperwork for a planning grant that will be starting here pretty soon. They're all just required federal passes and required to do.
No discussion, can we get a motion to adopt this resolution?
I make a motion that we adopt this resolution with the CBDG grant program, contract number 7218084.
Also,
Motion's been made by Michael, seconded by Ben. Is there any further discussion? If none, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, the motion carries. Next, we'll discuss and consider and adopt a resolution adopting required CDBG civil rights policies.
Same thing, more requirements on the grants. We usually just adopt this, re-adopt it every time they come through, so we don't miss it. And they are watching the paperwork very closely.
No discussion, can we get a motion to approve this resolution?
Make a motion to approve this resolution regarding civil rights.
Motion's been made by Johnny, seconded by Ben. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Next, number 12, proclaim April as Fair Housing Month. This proclamation will help to fulfill fair housing activity obligations as required by the grant.
Same thing, grant requirement.
I make a motion we proclaim April as Fair Housing Month.
Second.
Motion's been made by Eric, seconded by Michael. Is there any further discussion? If none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Next, we will consider and approve tax deeds for trust properties in the city of Littlefield from Texas Community Group, property ID 19373 at 1200 Dallas Avenue.
Mayor, I think the first or second house that we tore down in the Dunbar district, and, we've,
86.
I'm sorry. Yeah. And, they auctioned this off on that website, the Texas Community Groups, and, a $500 bid from Sean Matthews. Sean doesn't come up on any, thing where he owes us anything or code issues that we know of, so, just get back on the tax roll.
there are no there's no structure on the property, is there?
Right.
According to the information.
Right.
So, in the clause on page 88 at the top, where it says, grantee will do everything necessary to bring the property into compliance with all state and local code within 6 months of execution date of this deed, is that necessary?
Yeah.
Is there anything necessary on this property to bring it into compliance?
Shouldn't, maybe some mowing, but, I mean, it should be clear, everything. But I think that picture in there is a fairly recent picture. It's in there.
Well, I guess it goes on to say an affidavit stating the condition has been fulfilled, filed within 6 months of said date. Is that really necessary in this particular contract?
It's pretty standard language in these tax deals that there's clawback abilities for the city if they don't get it in compliance with code ordinances. So, I mean, if they would, the city would have to file also a statement within the same 6 months that they're out of compliance. So there's some protections for them.
Could be a problem if it grown up weeds or something like that, and we couldn't get them to mow it. I mean, I think it's probably good practice to leave it to the standard log and, on each one of these properties we sell, just so we can plain we treat everybody the same.
It's just added protection. Make a motion, we approve this tax deed for the sale to this gentleman.
Second.
Motion's been made by Eric, seconded by Ben. Is there any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Next, we will consider and approve an agreement regarding temporary street closure of East Wayland Jennings Boulevard, FM 54 from Littlefield Drive to Hall Avenue, and Hall Avenue from East Wayland Jennings to East 16th Street to the Lamb County Ag Center for the parade at Celebrate Littlefield on July 20th.
Mayor, y'all delegated the strict closure to me, but for some reason TxDOT doesn't like that. They want this standard deal passed each time, so instead of arguing with them, I just waited for them in. Rubber stamp, this is the same. Matter of fact, the letter to Mr. Gearing, I messed up and just changed the date on it instead of the day of the parade, so. Anyway, it's just kind of a rubber stamp thing to approve the parade for TxDOT to close that street.
There is some discussion of maybe Robert Nichols, which is the parade coordinator, is thinking it over and talking to some people, but there is some consideration to maybe shorten the parade to end it at like Web and Rye, but he hasn't decided that yet. And so he's supposed to let me know on Friday, but the celebration committee was, indifferent on it. It's kind of whatever Robert decides, but so he'll communicate with you, Rye, and let you know if that's necessary, but probably a good idea to go ahead and start the process.
Yeah, I'd recommend we do this just in case we don't. But in that case, if you stopped it at Web and Rye, we wouldn't have to do any of this TxDOT stuff. It's not that much, it's just that I just copy everything from the year before and give it to them, so.
Make a motion, we approve this agreement regarding the temporary street closure.
Second.
Motion's been made by Eric, seconded by Michael. Is there any further discussion? If none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Next, we will consider and approve an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Littlefield, Texas, amending the Code of Ordinances by repealing Section 13.03.009 in its entirety and replacing the said section with regulations regarding citizens collection station, setting fees, hours of operation, and penalty not to exceed $2,000.
Mayor, this ordinance, we're glad to finally get the citizens collection station open, hopefully next weekend, or this coming weekend, and hopefully everybody will take advantage of that, that can on Saturdays. It'll be a nice thing, I think, for some people to be able to get rid of their material. The ordinance there, this basically sets up the fee and some basic stuff, and it replaces an ordinance that actually was a letter from 1997, which is completely outdated. Having a letter in an ordinance is really not an efficient way to do things, but that's the way it was. But like I say, this section replaces that section of the code that was the old letter. And then I have a draft operating standards procedures back there. I'm up for discussion if you don't want to change any part of that. This is mostly following the application for the grant, so we're tied to some specifics that we used when we applied for the grant from TCEQ. And we were fortunate enough to get that $29,000 worth of equipment, the 2 roll-offs and a used skid steer. We ended up buying a 2016 model, and the guys have been using that, and that's kind of basically what we've got there, but that puts it all approved.
Joella, the point of this, we got a grant to open up and got permitted through TCQ to be open on Saturday, so we'll have a citizens collection station that's located where, Mitch?
It's on 6th Street, right off of Hall. You turn east, off of Hall, 2 blocks, and it's, I think it's 10,
East,
yeah,
south.
1102, it's
By the water tower.
can't miss it. And it's actually an old collection station from years past, so it was pretty easy for us to you know, fix it up, and get it updated with some gravel and stuff that we, Cleachy, that was part of the match money that we had to do to get it up and running. And we'll man it with, employees that will be flexing some days off during the week, like, an employee may take off a half a day for something during the week, and then they'll work, 4 hours at the collection station on Saturday to make it up. And they've gone through all the training stuff, Mary Bell and all, went through all the training, things. And should be pretty well ready to go, I believe.
So is it just gonna be landfill?
It's residential only, and it's,
But it's only landfill employees working there?
no, we'll have some public works folks filling in too. So, you know, we not train them about 5 or 6 people, so.
Hopefully it'll provide a good solution to the citizens that can't get to the landfill during the week, to be able to get rid of some of their bulkier items.
We'll do a little recycling there too, not a huge amount, but, you know, we'll pull out that metal and, some things that you can recycle that we have markets for. Some things we just don't have markets for, like paper and plastic. Most other things we do have a reuse or a market for somewhere.
Is there any other questions or discussion?
I noticed a small conflict on 105, page 105 and 107. Down at the bottom, section B, section 1B shows that notice, residential customers may dispose 2 pickup loads and 2 regular trailer loads per week. And in the operating procedures, it says just citizens are limited to 2 loads per Saturday. So I think maybe in the ordinance, it should say, maybe say 2 pickup loads and/or regular trailer loads per.
Yeah, we can clarify that, shouldn't be a problem.
So what is your intention, to have two
Two
loads?
two times, you know, on a Saturday, if somebody wants to fill up for pickup and trailer twice and come through this, you know, I mean, that's a hustling, but that's, I think that's okay.
So then
We just don't wanna
just
10
modify-
loads,
Yeah,
you know.
we can just modify the standard operating procedure sentence there, so it tracks the language on the
Yeah.
ordinance. That's a good clarification.
Anything else? Nothing else, can we get a motion to approve this ordinance for the citizen collection station?
Make a motion to approve the citizen collection station.
Second.
Motion's been made by Johnny, seconded by Renee. Is there any further discussion? If none, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, the motion carries. Next, we will consider and approve the resolution declaring an unopposed candidate in the May 4th, 2019. Excuse me, I keep that. 16, consider and approve an ordinance of the City of Lakeville, Texas, amending Chapter 1, Section 1.06.091 of the City of Lakeville Code of Ordinances, amending the fees for recreational vehicle park area on Hall Avenue, designating the responsible party for collection of fees, how selected fees are distributed, and setting out a penalty for violation of up to $500, providing for severability, providing for an effective date. Mitch?
Ben brought this to my attention a month ago or so, and, we need to update this, ordinance a little bit. It actually had the police department collecting fees, which is very unethical and probably a little unwelcoming, so, we needed to change that to reflect the practice. Now, I noticed Ben brought me some questions here, about splitting the campground. We never actually split the campground that the city has control of. We still get 100% of that, never have given that, any of that to the chamber. Now, the chamber has a part in the campground that's, on the south side of the horseshoe pits, which they've always collected 100% of those, revenues from that, but the only time they charged that was during the Celebrate Litchfield. Now, what had happened and caused us to have to kind of change our practice was we had some folks that were, kind of abusing that and, just staying there, you know, month after month and not, paying anything, and it was causing our bills to go higher. That is actually the electricity's always been paid by the city for that chamber section of the campground. And, so what we started doing was charging, the chamber was collecting the money for the chamber side, but we were getting 50% of that to offset the electrical, the added electrical costs of that. So that's kind of what's happened, and that's been a practice since, well, for about a year now. And probably looking at, what, $600 maybe, that the chamber has sent us to offset the electric bill.
Since we started,
Yeah.
it'd be like 1,000 or something.
Okay.
That's a rough estimate.
Anyway, this ordinance cleans that up and makes it clear whose obligation it is to oversee the park and all that.
I would like to see a change made on this. I mean, I know we have the free RV park's been there forever, and the ordinance has been there forever, I guess. I don't know when it was actually put in place, but since then, we've actually put in, had a couple of businesses go in for RV park, stays, where the people can stay in their RV park. And Jim Patrick is one. He has the Sunset Slope RV park. And it's more of an extended stay, a month at a time, I believe is what you charge. And then Molly's RV park at the Plains Motel has been in place for a very long time. And they charge per day. So I don't know if the city needs to be into retail RV park collecting of the funds. That's not something that I believe that we need to be doing. And since we don't have somebody actually stationed out there, it has to be done on a daily basis. I don't know how is the best way to keep up with that. How do we maintain that? I mean, you look at it 3 days, how do we know? Does somebody go out there every day and count the places that are being used? I mean, this is one of those things where it's usually been, like you said,
It's a voluntary basis.
voluntary, and
Yeah, it was a honor system, but
Honor
we
system,
kind
right.
of lost track of that honor
It's
system.
mostly not, it's operated on donations.
mhm.
If you stay there 3 nights, most RV parks charge you at least $40 a night.
Mhm.
And you get 3 nights, somebody's gonna, and that's what it was. And I don't know how I got it, I know Jim Patrick had turned his into an RV park.
Well, we kept Jim in mind, when we set that $20, because I figured that would be way more, $600 a month would be more than what Jim was charging out there.
Well, did you ever give him the rate of what he was charging out there? How much do you charge per month, Rick?
$250.
$250 a month, so
Ours is 600, so.
it's $600 a month, so
Figured that would-
if they knew that it was gonna save them that much money, they might load up and
Well,
go.
Mitch, you
Well, I
actually
think she
pushed
probably-
them to there, didn't you?
Yeah, one of the things and Andrew and them will attest that when we talk to people that are out there, that we end up, sometimes you get in there kind of a back and forth between, we send them to Jim, I mean,
Well, then, why not alleviate the issue about being back and forth and say you got 3 days, you have to go somewhere else? I mean, that's what I'm proposing, is we've changed the fees out there and make it only a free RV park for 3 days. After that, get up and go somewhere else, because we do have other opportunities for them to take their RVs.
My understanding of the history, which was way before my time, is the Wayland Jennings RV Park, which is closest to Ace. Jenny Kaufman at the Chamber of Commerce actually used to go out there and welcome people to town, collect the fees, and I don't know what the split was with the city. By ordinance, it is 3 days free stay or 4 days free stay.
4 days.
And so when all the construction workers came in and started getting abused, and so the city started going out and collecting that. The chamber had done quite a lot of work and paid for a lot of improvements over on the other side of the horseshoe pit. There was getting to be some overflow of construction workers, and, I guess the city manager decided that, to alleviate it, make it possible, instead of them going somewhere else, at least there'd be a space if they couldn't get into Mr. Patrick's RV park. Personally, I'd like to bulldoze the Wayland Jennings RV park and sell it to Ace or some other resident retail business and then get out of the business completely. But it's up to y'all.
It's definitely not that fun to go out there and collect money.
Well, that's the thing, the one for the
But now's the time to change it.
the celebration is once a year, and y'all rent out all those spaces out there, plus, y'all rent out actually the ones in the RV park, or is it
No,
just?
that's by
But
city
actually,
ordinance, that's by free.
You know, it just kind of depends on how it falls. If somebody sits up in the Wayland Jennings Park, you know, the week of,
Mhm.
and it's 3 days, then they're there,
Right.
you know. But the chamber side, they've got a waiting list, they rent out for the celebration, and it's a part of the income, you know.
Well, and there's a little confusion on who actually owns that land. I think it's actually the county's
It's
property.
county land.
Yeah.
So, for the city to be getting money from county property doesn't sound right
We
either.
have an agreement with those grounds to use
Yeah,
the Little League.
just as
and
long as we
horseshoe
keep up with
pits.
the grounds and stuff like that. My deal is if we wanna charge, there should be a way that we can put a lock box or a lock on them connections and put a sign out there saying, you know, if you're gonna stay here, you need to go to the city and, you know, report that you're gonna stay
Except that
here.
sometimes people drive in at midnight.
Yeah,
Who's gonna
and
be
that-
there?
and that's true, and that's true.
You have a lot of people that come in at midnight and they're up and gone by 5 o'clock next morning.
Yeah. Jim, do you have people come in real late at your place sometimes and stay, or do they come in during the day? How do they contact you if they wanna stay at midnight?
Yeah, that's very seldom ever happens. Most times they come in ahead of time and make arrangements,
Okay.
because they have to turn on their own electricity.
Oh, okay. Oh, 'cause they're there for a month, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. All right.
The Wayland Jennings deal's been 4 days for free and $20 a day after that for over 20 years.
Right.
You know, I'd love to push them to a private business, you know, but by ordinance, if y'all don't want them staying there, we need to repeal it and do away with it, or
Well, I'd say
do away with RV park.
staying there for free is not a problem. I mean, if they come in through town and have to stop somewhere, that's not bad, but on the other hand, we do have the retail places. I mean, they could go up to the road to Sudan, you know?
Well, nearly all the little towns our size around us here have a free RV park. It's furnished by the city. Levelland has one, Muleshoe has one, and just several of them.
Do they also have retail RVs?
That I couldn't tell you.
Because I think that is the reason why they have the free one, because there was no actual RV park set up to have places.
I say keep it and just, I mean, I know it's hard for the city to monitor, but I think it's still in a good faith base deal, you know, I don't think we got anybody staying a month or so, you know.
Word of mouth on the road when you're traveling in an RV. It says stay in Littlefield because you can just stay there for free.
Yeah.
Well, that's not a bad thing. So we get some retail dollars from that.
Pulled some retail merchants in, I mean.
You know, somebody who won't stay in a paid RV park,
Yeah, but then,
gotta wonder whether they're actually spending any money in town though.
If there was a little bit. If there was a paid RV park, they'd probably stay there.
yeah, but then you don't want somebody staying 2-3 months either.
Right, and that's the point we're talking about tonight.
Yeah.
3 or 4 days is okay, but that's why I have proposed changes on my sheet that I gave you for pages 110 and 111. And those are the changes that would actually take out collecting fees and making the penalty only for staying in excess of the 3 period. Yeah.
I don't think there's any of those here that want, and the city council or the city itself wants to charge. I mean, we don't want all that business.
Well, we don't want to be in that. So I think I'll make the motion that we make the proposed changes that I have here, and I can read them if we need to strike, on page 110, I believe, let me pull this up. On 110, that's gonna be in the whereas section, the third or fourth whereas, strike to designate the responsible party for collecting fees and how collected fees are distributed. And then we strike subsections C, D, and F. on page 111. And then modify subsection E to read, E is penalty. Any person who stays beyond the free of charge use period described in subsection B of this section shall be guilty of a misdemeanor and shall be subject to punishment as provided in section 1.0.1.009. Let me make sure I got that right. No, I got it. 1.01.009. Now I'll put an extra point in there. Of this code, each excess 24-hour period shall be deemed a separate offense. That section should be 1.01.009.
So if we strike the designated responsible party for collecting fees and how fees are collected and distributed, who's gonna do that?
There will be no fees.
It's free for an amount of the time.
Free for those, that free charge, free of use period. The free of use period is just designated in B, it's gonna be the 4 days.
And then after
After
4,
4
we
days.
tow them out of there.
They say you gotta get going, because that's your 4-day period.
And what if there's more construction or something going on?
Go to, you send it to Patrick's or to Molly's or to Sudan or, you know.
Always is not operational, so
Sunset.
that's a problem.
Sunset Slope, yeah. They can go to Sunset Slope, RV Park. And there's construction, that's a good time for them to get out there.
That is a perfect time for them to.
So I make that motion to make those changes to this ordinance, to approve the ordinance with the changes that I've proposed. Are there any questions on those ordinances for me, or the
So
changes?
paraphrase what
I'll get
your
a copy
motion
of
is you're basically changing to, make the RV, the Wayland Jennings RV Park only 4 days, free,
Right,
and then nothing after that, and then we just tell them to leave after that.
yes, sir. We'll direct them to a paid RV park.
Which we only have one that's long-term stay.
I believe we have 2. Molly's RV is open.
We disagree on that a little bit. All right, is there a second?
Before we do that, if the chamber collected the fees at one time,
There is some confusion here. On the Wayland RV Park, which is north of the Horseshoe Pit, the chamber does not get any of that money.
okay,
The chamber is getting half of the money on the stuff
On the
south
south side.
of the Horseshoe Pits because we pay utilities. It's on our electric meter too, is that correct?
Yeah, except for during the Celebrate Littlefield, they get all of the revenue.
But they do compensate us for some of that, right?
They,
So-
they have a collectively give us that, also utilities.
so we're talking about the one on the north side?
The north side is
Well,
what?
it'd be the whole thing, wouldn't it? Because it all constitutes the whole area. We're talking about,
There is no ordinance in place for the chamber portion of
well,
it.
that's what this ordinance is doing that for. Because we have in here the Hall Avenue Campground is all the campsites in and around the Wayland Jennings section and the chamber section. And the chamber section is defined in here. Campsites to the immediate south side of and adjacent to the Horseshoe Pits.
Because you don't, I don't think you wanna do that on the Wellington, on the south side, because during Celebrate Littlefield, you have campers come in 3 or 4 days, maybe even 5 days before the celebration
Right,
starts.
because those are the ones that are reserved. So that's one thing that we do probably need to take into consideration is the reservation
Yeah.
of the south side chamber. And if we need to talk about this later and make sure that it's done right, then we,
Again, as drafted, I think it codifies current practices as they've been for the last while. Obviously, if Ben's motion is seconded and passed, then it's, completely changes what the ordinance is, and that can be done. I mean, we can have it however you want it. You just tell us how you want it, so.
Just to clarify the directive, during all the other 51 weeks of the year, the chamber section of the Hall Avenue campground, what's your desire on that?
that would be the part of the free. They'd be there for 4 days.
So that applies everywhere. except for during Celebrate Littlefield.
Right, and that's one thing that I did not take into account was the Celebrate Littlefield, so I think we struck
So
through
we-
that portion of it.
Yeah,
But we
that's
do-
all provided in
We
there.
do need to make that a portion of it, and that's my oversight on that.
I disagree with your motion until there's some permanent stuff that comes in on, there has to be something to keep people in town and give them the ability to stay here if needed. Now, I think they need to go to gyms. If he advertises or whatever that draws them there, that's a great, it's much cheaper than the city's offering, and that's a great deal. We want to push them to private people, but there is no other options in these big workflow times, which there's additional phases that could be coming or should be coming with this milk plant. So I think that's a little hasty at this point with all the construction on the horizon. Is my personal opinion. Yeah, there's been motions on the table to strike these three things that's listed here. Is needing a second.
I think we need to kind of just look at this a little bit more in detail, maybe come up with a plan that everybody agrees with. With me, I say we collect the $40 or whatever it is, $20 night after the fourth night or whatever. To me, I mean, that's just, you're not gonna get rich off of it, but you'll make a little money,
Who's gonna be responsible for collecting that?
And that's what I mean. I think we need to look into it a little bit more in depth and figure out how can it work, who can collect what and when,
Whose district is it in? Is it in my district?
Not sure.
That's it forward. I believe.
Yeah, I think it's 4, but I'm not 100% sure.
Well, I think we've got a pretty good little system set up where we don't go out there every day. We've got it set up where I think they're working it Tuesday and Friday or something like that, or they were. I don't know if they're still doing it on those days, but, the days we went out there, we would catch them, if they wanted to trick us, they could come in there on Wednesday and get an extra, day or something, but that, it's not a huge load. It's, it's something that, definitely work, but, it's not something that we run away from,
Well, for lack of a second, then I say we postpone this until we get more information.
I make the motion that we approve this resolution so that it can stay in operation until a different decision is made. Because, it has to either chain the gate closed, or we need to, we've made a deal with this, so we need to either ratify this and continue operation with this until you come up with a better idea, or change the gates closed.
So we've been having a practice already without having to do anything, so why don't we just continue that practice
Because
until
we
we
made an issue of it, and now that it's an issue, it needs addressed. So,
Okay, you threw me for a curve.
with this puts into effect our current policy that we have been doing.
For 3 years.
For the immediate past future.
Yeah, this whole policy has not been in effect because the chamber has not been receiving half of the funds for a very long time. That portion was actually put in effect by Mitch Grant.
That's on a portion that was not covered by the previous ordinance either. So this cleans up if we pass this, if y'all want to bring it back up and change it, make it free, close it, whatever. But the issue has been brought up that it needs addressed, and so I make a motion that we approve this until a different alternative can be brought forth.
And bring that back next month.
If that's their desire.
Okay, I'll second your motion
Motion's been made by Eric, seconded by Michael. Is there any further discussion? If none, do y'all want to look at this again next month?
Yes.
So we need to bring it back to the agenda.
I'll write up something that reflects, Ben's idea there and, bring it to you next month.
So the motion before the council is to adopt this resolution. All in favor, say aye.
then.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Next, we will consider and approve a resolution declaring an unopposed candidate in May 4th, 2019 election, canceling the election for District 2. Janine, there's nobody running unopposed in District 4.
Can you represent opposed in District 4? Yes, sir.
Get a motion to cancel the election for District 4.
I make a motion, we cancel.
Second.
Motion's been made by Michael, seconded by Johnny. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, the motion carries. Next, update on tenants in common agreement with West Texas Property Enhancement Systems Incorporated, including the city's planned uses for the property at or near 206 West 3rd Street. What this is in regards to is the building that was gifted to the city by Nolan Greek, his half interest in that old law firm building that Rush Wells is also an owner and an occupant of. We were gifted that at the very end of 2017, so we kind of took possession the first of 2018. We were in negotiations with Rush to either him buy us out of our half or us buy him out of his half. That building has some easements across the city's parking lot. It's right behind City Hall. And it was gifted to us and made an opportunity for an economic development incentive or something in the future. The reason this is on the agenda tonight is since about 6 months ago, we have not been getting much response out of Rush, getting anything done. We were paying for half of the utilities and upkeep on the building. We were trying to negotiate with him in good faith to do something. He let us know 2 weeks ago that he would not be doing anything and that he was not, if we wanted to do it, we could sue him for partition. So we definitely don't want to have to go down that trail. So it is our building, and so half of it is. And so Mitch has been looking at other options for utilizing that half of our space. We believe that the charter gives him the authority to use the city's assets and to fill those how he sees fit as the administrator. Just wanted to put it on the agenda tonight because I suspect if we move in a department or rent that out to a company that is satisfied in this tenants in common agreement, we have quite a bit of flexibility in that. That he might go to squealing. So just brought it up for some public discussion, and our interest needs to, it's great, we own half that building, but we need to use it. And so Mitch has been talking to actually a private company that is needing some temporary office space, and there may be a real possibility for them to move in shortly, or they've also talked about moving some department over there to utilize that space as well. So, but as of today, Rush did contact Matt Wade, who is the attorney with Underwood, that has been kind of negotiating with him, and seems to be that he's interested in maybe picking back up some negotiations. But Matt left it with him that we have put lots of opportunities in front of him, and so the ball's in his court, so he'll need to get us something that he would like to see done, and whether that's us buy it and lease it to him to allow him to wind down his law practice or whatever that may be. But in the meantime, we can't continue to pay for half the utilities and maintenance and not use that building. So, Mitch, you have anything to add, or anybody else have a question?
No.
Just really no activity tonight, it's just an update, let y'all know that the negotiations have kind of ceased with Rush, and Mitch is looking for solutions to make use of our property. So if there's no other questions, we'll move on. Next, we will consider and approve or reject the bid and purchase of aerators as part of the Texas CDBG water wastewater grant. Mitch?
I feel like we needed to formally reject this bid on the aerators. The background on this is the third time around we bid these out, and we just have a real problem getting bidders due to various reasons. But the aerators should be more like around 150 at the most for the 4 aerators installed. But the bid we got was, the only bid we got was $27,000, which is way over what it should cost, twice, maybe 3 times what it should cost. and it's way beyond the grant amount that we have for the area. So, maybe the fourth time's the charm. We're gonna do something a little bit different this time. We're gonna try to get, some of our local folks that don't really typically do this kind of thing to maybe get, set up to where they could bid on this, grant program. So my recommendation is that you, reject the bid, of $270,000.
Does that $270,000 include the actual area themselves, right?
Yeah, and, you know, if you recall, we bought two, we kind of pair them up in 10 and 25 horse, and we bought the two, and you had them installed for probably less than 60,000, so this was just for two, and see what the amount there is twice what it should be.
And so, why can't we in this grant go ahead and buy the two? And like you said, are you planning on getting somebody local to install it?
It makes too much sense, to be honest with you. The federal guidelines that are handed down through the TVA are, it's just, and, I've asked them that, and we proposed that, and we've tried all kinds of different end runs to do this, but the bottom line is they just will not let you go out and do that. You've got to work with a contractor to do it.
Does it have to be purchased by one contractor? Like, does it have to be purchased and installed by one contractor? Or could it be purchased by one contractor and installed by another?
It's one of the exact questions we asked, and they would not let us do that. Good thinking there, Ben. That's the same thing I thought, but anything that makes sense seems to get shot down when you deal with these grants,
They
but
won't let us buy them?
no, they sure won't. I wish they would. We asked them and begged and pleaded, and they wouldn't let us, so.
We will actually be using part of this grant money for the SCADA system in a later.
The next item, yeah, the SCADA item did come in, we've been using it, but this one, I just say, the only thing we can do is reject it, we can't lower it or anything. Now, we are gonna take a little bit different approach next time and have the base bid of just one set, and then have additive alternates of actually two more sets, and outside possibility, we may get 3 sets with this, which was the original plan, but, depending on what kind of price we can get. Because frankly, these things, all you gotta do is say, send me one, and they're already, they're packaged up and ready to go, and the electrician just hooks up 2 wires, 3, so they're really not, they're not brain surgery.
Is TDA working with you, are they gonna let you rebid either beyond?
Yeah. Yeah. Now, the engineers get a little short-tempered because they say they've lost a lot of money on this, but I told them I'm not gonna pay them more.
Make a motion, we reject the bid for the purchase of aerator.
Second.
Motion's been made by Eric, seconded by Johnny. Is there any further discussion? If none, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Next, we will consider and approve a bid for the purchase of addition SCADA system, alarm system under the improvements as part of the Texas CDBG water wastewater grant.
Yeah, you see that letter from Kim and Horn Association recommending acceptance of that bid. That one is within range of a reasonable amount that they bid for that SCADA system. Had 2 bids on that, and you can see one bid was twice as much as the other one, which this crazy stuff that this is a reasonable bid for $155,207. Leaves plenty of money from the $300,000 grant. I feel like it's a SCADA grant.
Make a motion, we approve the bid for the purchase of the SCADA system.
Second.
Motion's been made by Eric, seconded by Michael. Is there any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. We are adjourned. Thank you for coming.
How's it going?
Oh, yeah, I know, I want to slap close to that.
Ramping up for budget season again. Closing, that's what I do have.
They have taken all these, that good report. Yeah. Believe it.
Bye, be careful. He's gonna walk home.